Carter, will you come up here real quick? Carter, come on up here. I forgot to, this is my fault. I'm supposed to get the homie money, you know what I'm saying? I promised them I had some cash for him, right? I promised you, cuz. Wait. You want this dollar? You want this? Yeah. You can do a lot. You can get Chick-fil-A, you can get Chipotle, Starbucks, macchiato. All right, I'm gonna give this to you, all right? Still want it? Yeah. All right. Carter, do you still want this? You don't want this anymore? You want it? You want it? You want it? Would you want it too? I got money to give to my mama. Here's the thing. Carter won this. You want this, right? Because you can use it. Go ahead.
Thank you, Jovan.
I got you, brother. So here's the reason why I spazzed out on that $10 bill. It's funny that he still wanted it even when it was beaten up. He still wanted that $10 bill even when I stepped on it, even when I crumpled it up. He still wanted it. You want to know why? Because it never lost its value. It never lost its value. It's still useful even if it's been damaged. And here's the thing for a lot of us today, and what we're going to be talking about a little bit, the same is for you. Because your value doesn't diminish because you've been damaged. You get that? Your value doesn't diminish because you've been damaged. And here's the thing I want you to know. You are 10, 20, 30, 50 times more valuable than a $10 bill. Because here's the thing, life is going to bend you. People are going to step on you. You're going to be tossed around. You're going to get crushed a lot in your life. But always remember and always know that your value doesn't diminish, even if you've been damaged. But let's just be honest with ourselves a little bit today. We all have been damaged in some type of way, right? Some of you guys have disappointing parents. Some of you guys do. Your parents come up short a lot, right? Some of you guys have disappointing parents. Maybe some of you have disappointing relationships. In one season, you were in love. In one season, everything was great. In one season, you had all these friends, and everything was great, and everything was going right. And then, boom, it's gone. We all have some type of damage in our own lives. I know for me, the damage for me was when my parents got a divorce. Some of you know what that's like. Some of you know the trauma that comes with that divorce. Divorce is not a pretty thing. Especially divorce is not pretty when the kids are involved. When the kids are heavily involved, and that was my brother and I, not knowing if we were ever going to see our father or ever walk through that door again because mom and dad can't get along. One time they did, but now, it's gone. You all have been damaged. We all have been damaged in some type of way. Some of us have trust issues. Anybody got trust issues in the house today? Some of you have trust issues because somebody ruined your trust. Some of you can't love anyone fully because you don't love yourself. Some of you can't love anybody, can't even have a real relationship because you have a hard time liking you. Some of you are control freaks. Any control freaks in the house? Where my control freaks at? You're control freaks because you hate when things are out of control. In a moment that things don't look the way that you want it to look, grow anxious, grow stressed because of the things that I've encountered in your life. Some of you lack serious confidence. Some of you lack some serious confidence, and every time you look at yourself, you say, how could I ever blank? Why would somebody ever blink? Your confidence was one day ripped away from you because of an encounter that you've had. Here's the thing. We all have had moments in our lives where we have some serious damage. Some of you have had it more serious than others. Whatever it may be, damage doesn't have a levels. Damage is just damage. Because here's the thing when it comes to damage, it hurts. And sometimes when you have that hurt, you don't know what to do with that. Sometimes you're saying to yourself, how do I manage this? Hey, you guys get back there? Am I boring you? All right. Sometimes you guys are so damaged in your lives that you don't know what to do with the current situation. How do I handle the breakup? How do I handle the divorce? How do I handle when I'm bullied? How do I handle when I'm rejected? What do I do with it? Which is the reason why a lot of people go down the wrong paths in their lives. People become addicts, not just out of nowhere, but because of a moment. I never forget, I met a man in our week of prayer this past week, very awesome guy, awesome, nice man, but he was a meth addict. Been a meth addict for the last 8 years. He was coming here and he wanted to get clean so bad. But you know what he told me that was so magnificent that made me think about this as I was prepping for the sermon? He says, I think the reason why I became an addict, because I never learned how to handle the abuse from my father. He says, I didn't know what to do with that. I actually lost myself. There are moments in your lives where you're going to have some serious situations where you're going to lose yourself. Where the moments have happened like that in my own life has been when I was a teenager. Because let me be honest with you, what happened to me at 15 stayed at 15. It never moved forward with me. We typically lose our identity when life gets heavy. That's when we lose our identity. It's when life gets so serious. When life gets real in your life. When things aren't going the way that you imagined. When you're coming to church and you're hearing these encouraging messages by your youth pastor and he's telling you all these great things, but you go home to a wreck of a family. You go home to a wreck of yourself. You go home and your relationships are tainted. Typically, those are the moments where you lose your identity. That's when life gets heavy. Typically, that's the reason why a lot of you started drinking, started smoking, because you don't know how to handle. That's why a lot of people that I've known, a lot of young girls laid with other boys because they didn't know how to handle some of the hurt and pain that they've gone through in their own lives. So they felt that the only way to numb the pain is to do that. So I want you guys to understand that in this message today, you all have that pain in your life. Again, we have it on different levels. It doesn't matter. It's just pain and it's damage. The one thing I want each and every one of you to know is your current scene that you're in, or your past moments, or your traumatic situation with your family, the drama, all the dumb decisions that you made. I want you to know your current scene doesn't complete your story. It doesn't complete your story. Don't get trapped in the scene. Why? Because it's just a scene. Scenes are meant to what? End. They're meant to end. I want you guys to know this. No matter what you go through, because we all go through something, just don't lose you. Just don't lose you. And that's what this one guy that we talked about last week, this guy Paul, wanted to interpret into his messages to the churches, was this idea and this promise and this moment where he wanted people to know, don't lose you when life happens to you. Don't lose you when people break up with you. Don't lose you when your dad loses your job. Don't lose you when that person rejects you. Don't lose you when you aren't lining up the way you thought you should. Don't lose you when life happens to you. When people abuse you, when people reject you. And that's what this guy Paul wanted to communicate all throughout his time when he's writing to these churches. There's this one church that he wrote to, and the church is called Philippi. The Philippians is what they were known as. And he wanted them to understand this one thing. Let's read it, Philippians chapter 2, verse 13. Love this verse because Paul believed it about himself, but he wanted others to believe it as well. He says this, Philippians chapter 2, verse 13. It says this, for God is working in you, giving you the desire and the power to do what pleases him. See, here's the thing Paul wanted this church to understand. And here's the thing I want each and every one of you to know that this passage interprets to each and every one of us. You have infinite value because of an infinite God. You have infinite value. You have infinite worth because of an infinite God. Paul believed that about himself. Despite what was happening to him, he didn't lose himself. He wanted to encourage them. Because again, you lose your identity when life gets hard. You lose your identity when life gets serious, when things arise in your life. And maybe you haven't had that moment before. Maybe you have a picture-perfect life. Maybe you have it where both mom and dad are at home. They got jobs. You get along with your siblings. Maybe you have that good life. Power to you. I love you. But guess what? It's inevitable. Things will happen. Things will happen. Paul said this. Paul knew that his current situation, because Paul is in a moment right now, because Paul's actually writing this letter from prison. And it's not the prison that you think of like today, like a modern day prison. His prison that he's in, he has shackles on his legs. The man can barely move like 10 steps. He's got guards all around him. He's been beaten wrongfully. He's been thrown in prison wrongfully. But here he is encouraging other people. Because Paul knew this. Paul knew that his current situation wasn't going to stop God from working in his life. Why? Because he has infinite value. Paul says, I'm not what's in front of me, but I am what God put in me. I'm not what's in front of me, but I am what God put in me. Valued, qualified, wonderful, chosen, because what he put in me is greater than what's outside of me. I want you guys to know this. How you see your circumstances is important, because it will do this one thing. It will determine if you live out your full potential that God put in you. Because you are going to have that moment in your life where you're going to have to choose how you handle what happens to you. And I want you all to understand the reason why people have hiccups and the reason why people go down the wrong paths is because they can't handle the hurt that they happen in their lives. Paul said this, you don't belong to your situation. I don't belong to what's going on with me. Because here's the thing I want you guys to know. My issues don't determine my life. God does. My issues, my problems, my hard moments, my situations, the pain and the hurt that you and I have happened to us, they don't determine my life. God does. Because here's the thing, you are not your issues. You are not your issues. You are not what you're going through. You are not the rejection. You are not the abuse. You're not the divorce. I want you to understand that God himself holds the power to produce great results in your life and also in my own life as well. So don't let the pain and the confusion wrap you up to the point where you just say, nothing good could ever happen in my own life, or you're just living life just as it is. No, notice that you have infinite value, meaning you have purpose. God put something in you for you so you can be special in this world. But you are not your issues. You are not your issues. You are not the pain. Don't identify with the pain. Identify with the one who made you, who created you, who formed you, but also who knew you. Here's the one thing I want you guys to know. Don't let the breakup break you. Don't let the divorce destroy you. Don't let what mom and dad don't do demolish you. Don't let death or sickness haunt you. Because here's the thing. God created you. God knows you. God wants us to live out the purpose that he's put in us because, again, we have infinite value because he's an infinite God. Because I want you to understand, there's going to be moments in your life where it's going to keep happening. I'm sorry to say. You're going to have life piled on top of one another. Circumstances change, but guess what? Your identity doesn't. Circumstances change. One season you're in this, and then the next season you're in something else. Just don't lose you. Don't lose you. Don't leave you in the season that you were before. Don't leave you in that past scene. Because here's the thing, every scene and every season is meant to what? End But I want you guys to understand in this message today, your circumstances, your situations, your hurt, the stuff that you go through, they don't define you. They can't define you. God says, I'm the one that defines you, son. I'm the one that defines you, daughter. Your success on the field, your success in the classroom, your success, whatever it may be, the hurt that people put on you, don't lose you when that stuff happens. Why? Because God himself, put infinite value in each and every one of us. Can you guys really understand what I'm saying today? Because I want you to know this, life is going to happen. I am about to be 30 this year, and life has happened. About to be 30 this year, Sam. We're right there. I'm crossing over. I want to share a story with you before I close. About a year ago, Amy and I were sitting in the doctor's office when we were trying to figure out what we're going to do to take a step towards having a baby. And I'll never forget, the doctor looked at us, and we're all excited. We're ready to go. We're ready to take this one process. This is before the process that we're in right now. And we're sitting there, and the doctor looked at me, and the doctor told me, I'm sorry, Mr. and Mrs. Anderson, doesn't look like you're going to be able to have a child right now. And the look on my wife's face crushed me. But you know what I said to myself? This is why I'm sharing this message today, because what happened doesn't determine. See that? What happened doesn't determine, because here I am today, and I'm about 1 month away from being a father. And I want you guys to understand this. I didn't want to lose me. I didn't want to lose me in that moment, because what happened is not going to determine. You got that? Because God is the one who determines the course of my life. God says, yes, she's saying one thing, but I got something else for you. Just hold on to me. But that's what I want you to do today. Hold on to him. Trust him today. Trust that he will deliver and come through in your life. Trust him today. Can you do that? Have you done that? Have you accepted the way God has accepted you? Have you said that to yourself? You said, Jesus, I accept that you accepted me. Because if you haven't, I want you to pray this prayer with me. And if you have, maybe you've fallen away from faith. Maybe you've taken a detour. Maybe you've taken a step back. Life got a little bit busy. It's okay. It happens. Happens to me all the time. But I want you to repeat this prayer. I want you to recommit yourself and say, God, I am not what happened, because you hold the keys to what's going to happen in my life. Let's pray.